welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is empowered leadership coach, motivational speaker, and of course, an author too, and the author of the book Rare Birds, no other than Miss Meghan Walsh. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Megan. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's absolute pleasure. So I am an empowered leadership coach. I do workshop facilitations, and I am now an author. And it's going to be launching officially next week on Tuesday. So I am very excited about that. So I had been in the corporate world for over 18 years and built a marketing department from scratch for a Fortune 500 company. And part of the catalyst of leaving that world and transitioning over into leadership coaching, certified positive psychology practitioner, but I also pull on my teachings from Druidism, shamanism, and energy healing. So it's very empowered inner healing kind of work to become more powered within leadership roles. And part of the catalyst for this book was very much around, not being fulfilled where I was at and kind of going deeper into these different practices and strategies to help me uncover what my purpose is and really kind of lean in and step into that.
Miss Megan Walsh, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. The metaphor of rare birds is so powerful. How do you define a rare bird, and what are the qualities that separate them from the rest of the flock?
Well, the reason why I chose the phoenix on the front cover is one of the concepts I talk about is how we go through challenges. And one of the ways that we can kind of uncover our purposes are those obstacles that we overcome and the resilience that we build. But to be able to do that, it's very much a transformational process, right? There's parts that have to be let go. You're kind of going through the ashes and releasing all those aspects that are no longer you. And the whole thing about the rare birds is that you kind of are going against the grain. You're not part of the fabric of everyone telling you you have to do something a certain way, that you know that you're meant for something else. So it's that transformational quality that comes through from the rare bird. And that's where the tagline for Dare to Break Free from the flock and find your purpose is about you taking a different path and knowing that you're meant for something else and starting that kind of self discovery to get there.
Very well said, Miss Megan. And why is the flock often in direct opposition to finding our unique purpose? Is it about conformity or fear or something else?
I think it's a bit of both. I feel like when we were younger, we were told to, go after our dreams. And I feel like a lot of us didn't have the tools to be able to really find what we wanted to do when we were at that age. At least I didn't. I didn't have any real passions when I was younger. And, I didn't know how to kind of like go within myself and find all those things that really lit me up to be able to discover it. So I feel like sometimes we go to school and we do all these things, and our parents will tell us to, pick this, pick business, it's going to be the best for you, you'll get a better job. And I felt like a lot of the the choices I made when I was younger, it's because it sounded good on paper. It was like logical. Do this and you'll get a good job. Then go and do this. And instead, I just felt like I was just doing one thing after the other without like a real vision of what I wanted. And then I just fell into certain roles and they would fulfill me for a little bit, but then I would just feel this emptiness. I would feel this almost like wanting something more, but I didn't know what it was. And I kind of kept doing this in my career over and over. And then when I started to understand like these different aspects of, you know, like from the spiritual path of druidism and shamanism, it gave me a different lens to start saying, you know what, like I don't have to listen to what everyone else tells me what I want to do because I'm living my life. So why don't I actually start to really discover what's going to light me up? And that's kind of what started this whole journey.
Discover of who you are, people, and share to the world that discovery. And Miss Megan, the title implies a daring act to break from the flock. What is the first and often scariest step to the process of breaking away?
I think there's a chapter that I have on, it's called the stories we tell. And one of the hardest things I think is to really start taking action towards, once you find your purpose, taking even just those small action points can be incredibly difficult, especially when, you know, people are telling you that, what are you going to do? You're going to leave this really good job. You got your pension, you got this. What do you mean you're going to do something else? So it can be difficult for taking those first like initial steps to start building momentum in a different direction. That can be very scary. And a lot of the times it's these stories that we tell ourselves of, you know, that we're not good enough, that, well, what if I fail? And we place a lot of our self-worth on outcomes of things that happen. So instead of just being like, you know what, I tried this, it didn't quite work, let's recalibrate, let's experiment. It's almost like I failed, therefore I am a failure. And a lot of the times we can get stuck in this place of not wanting to take not wanting to take a leap of faith on ourselves. And that's where you kind of have to start unraveling those stories that are holding you back so that you can start taking those initial steps and you can start moving in the direction of where you feel there's fulfillment in your life. And that's that kind of like deeper knowing, because people might tell you, oh, I don't know, like, you know, this seems like not a safe thing to do. But when you know that this is what is going to fulfill you, it gives you that faith in yourself and it helps you to kind of have that self worth that helps you to kind of like move forward in alignment.
Self worth, indeed. On finding purpose and authenticity, many people feel a nagging sense of they meant for something but cannot pinpoint what is it. What is your process for helping someone move from the vague feeling to clear sense of purpose?
Yeah, there's a lot of different aspects that I touch on in the book. So there's exercises at the end of each chapter, and they're all different elements and they're different frameworks that you can use to start kind of unraveling that. And one of the ones that I start off with is understanding, you know, what your why is. Sometimes we can find it easier to know what our why is, where our why is what fuels kind of like our purpose. And it's kind of like what lights you up in the morning, what gets you out of bed. And a lot of people can have a challenge when they talk about even their why because they think it has to be something big or grand, which it doesn't. It's just something that kind of fuels you. It's what kind of gives you that. motivation. And when we start with our why, one of the practices is to even doing it in the morning. It helps to kind of build that motivation towards what we are working towards. So for me, mine is to inspire and teach. So whenever I'm kind of feeling that, resistance, that comes back to helping me kind of keep going and keep going past like those stories is when we have that why. And then when we uncover the why, it can lead us to help us find what our purpose is. And same with our challenges, looking at what your strengths are, your character strengths. There's each chapter kind of pulls back different layers of who you are to understand you at a deeper level. And each exercise kind of helps you to uncover different aspects of your purpose.
For someone listening who feels completely disconnected from their purpose, what is one simple reflective exercise they can do today to start listening to their own inner rare bird?
That's a good question. One of the one of the techniques that I do talk about is when we reconnect with our intuition. And one of the practices that you can do that can kind of help you if you want to really start doing something that's quickly to gain insights is this heart connection practice. And it's where you can close your eyes, you start grounding, taking deep breaths in and out. And then you want to focus your energy onto your heart center. And you can even take two fingers, putting it onto your heart, and you can ask your heart, what are the elements of your purpose? So it's being able to come into this like higher vibration, being able to kind of quiet out the noise, and your intuition will come through the same way as say your mind, but it's usually quieter. It will be like a quieter voice. And that's a simple practice that you can do. And even if you don't hear anything right away, being aware when you're going out through your day, things might be able to trigger different elements that might come to you. But it's a way for you to kind of quiet the noise and find a way for you to tap into that inner knowing to help you to uncover your purpose.
Is a purpose a single monumental thing we discover, or is it more a path we build through a series of choices and actions?
That's an interesting question. For me, it's almost like a GPS. It's the one that's kind of guiding my actions. And I find when we weave our purpose through our actions, we start to gain like more fulfillment into our lives. And that just builds exponentially because it makes us happier when we're doing it. But it doesn't have to be something like very grand or anything like that. Mine is quite simple. It's just helping people. It's incredibly broad, but I do weave it throughout my day. I weave it through the people I meet, through the work that I do, all these different aspects. Like volunteering was something that I've been doing for many years, that helping people became, my purpose. And your purpose can adapt, right, in the different stages of the life you're in as well. And it's just coming back to that kind of core of what really lights you up and being able to incorporate that, whether that's if you want to do that with your career, if you're transitioning into something else, or perhaps if you're coming into retirement, or if you just want something more meaningful in the activities that you do in your spare time.
Miss Megan, as empowered leadership coach and author, motivational speaker, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Ooh, short term and long term goals. Well, one of my short term goals in the next couple, probably in the next month or so, I do want to launch a cohort where it's focusing on helping people, finding their purpose, but also allowing them to use their intuition to make better decisions, to be more empowered leaders, and have more fulfillment in their life, and being able to use almost this intuitive leadership as part of their way of life. And my clients who've been walking this path with me have found it so fulfilling. And this is something that I would like to do for a group coaching. For my long term goals, for next year, one of the ones that I have is to do a TED Talk. So we'll see if that happens, but that would be one of my long term ones.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Megan, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
My piece of advice is know that you are worthy of your success. You are worthy of everything that you want to bring into fruition in your life. And if you feel like there's something more, and if you feel like you have that kind of almost like that calling or knowing that there's another path out for you, then I would suggest to have the courage and to bet on yourself. Because when you start walking that path, that's when those opportunities start opening up for you. But you have to start taking those initial steps, which can be scary. But then you start having more faith in yourself as you continue down this path.
Thank you for that advice, Miss Megan. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
To recommend one of the books?
Yes, recommend a book or books that influence your journey.
Oh, my journey, yes. Well, one of my favorite books is, and I do talk about it in the book as well, is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Is absolutely one of my favorites.
Thank you for that recommended book, Miss Megan. And what is the most common feedback you receive from readers about this upcoming book of yours?
Uh, that it actually gives concrete strategies that you can use. So it's very much like a guide where you can put in the work instead of just reading it. Like it's very much a guided path, and the appreciation of receiving that information, that they find those strategies, those different frameworks very helpful to help have a clear path forward in something that can be very abstract, has been great feedback.
Wow, what was your own breaking from the flock moment that led you to write this book, Miss Megan?
Hmm. Uh, it was kind of I would call it a tower moment. It was a couple of years ago. It was like one of the worst years of my life that I went through. And it was just one of those areas where it's like health challenges, cancer, dealing with toxic work environments, financial constraints. We were moving, like it was literally every aspect of my life kind of came crashing down around that point. And it was when I was still in corporate, where I was still kind of holding on to this job that was no longer serving me. And I knew that. in my inner compass, but I was ignoring it. And that whole healing journey is what kind of led to me taking a different path and really betting on myself and just finally taking the leap of faith that, this is where I'm meant to be. This is my purpose in life, and that's was the catalyst for my book.
Is there a responsibility that comes with being a rare bird? Is it just about personal fulfillment, or is it about contributing something unique to the world?
Hmm. I've found in my experience, usually those two things are interrelated. Usually, a lot of when it comes to purpose, there's tends to be elements of helping others, of giving back. And, whether that is, even to your children or if it's, to the people in your community, I think they kind of weave in together because a lot of the film fulfillment that we do receive usually has a tendency to kind of have a ripple effect to others.
Miss Megan, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please to listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and mental health 101. Love letters in third season and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, Miss Megan, finally, if you could have every reader embrace one truth from Rare Birds, what would you want it to be?
For me, the truth would be always follow your inner knowing because it will always point you in the right direction. And that heart connection will always lead you on a path for your highest ability. That would be my one truth.
Miss Megan Walsh, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your upcoming book, Rare Birds?
Thank you so much, Danielle. I really appreciate being on your show.
So, where do people can buy your books, Miss Megan or Book? Where do people
They
can buy
will,
your book?
yes, they will be available on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday on Amazon, and they can find it on .com and .ca.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Megan Walsh because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering rare birds to come. So, Miss Megan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
More to come, people. See you soon.